We were at her company's annual dinner, the kind where everyone's pretending to like each other while silently competing for attention. I'd spent all week helping Lauren prepare, choosing her dress, practicing her presentation even, calming her nerves when she doubted herself. But that night, when I reached for her hand as we entered the room, she pulled away. Her voice was low but sharp, enough to cut through me. "Don't let them think we're a couple." For a moment, I froze. The music, the chatter, the clinking glasses, all of it faded. I just stared at her, trying to understand if I had heard right. She glanced at me, eyes cold and composed, as if she'd said something perfectly reasonable. Then she adjusted her hair and walked ahead, leaving me standing there like I was some stranger who had shown up, uninvited. I followed quietly, but something inside me cracked that night. I didn't make a scene. I didn't demand an explanation. I just observed her. Laughter, her charm, the way she leaned in a little too close to her boss while pretending not to notice me at all. Lauren had changed. Or maybe she'd always been this way, and I was just too blinded by love to see it. When we first met, she was everything I thought I wanted. Confident, ambitious, and radiant. I admired her drive, her independence, her sharp mind. But somewhere along the way, she began treating me like an accessory. The man who stood quietly by her side, useful when needed, invisible when not. That dinner made it impossible to ignore anymore. Every smile she gave to someone else, every dismissive glance in my direction, every time she emphasized I instead of we, it all added up. After her speech, people gathered around to congratulate her. She basked in the attention, beaming with pride. I stood off to the side, clapping softly, pretending not to notice that she hadn't introduced me to a single person all evening. Later, when the night ended and we stepped outside, the chill in the air matched the silence between us. She looked radiant under the streetlight, but when she turned to me, there was no warmth left in her eyes. "Thanks for coming," she said, like she was talking to a colleague. And in that moment, I realized something. She didn't want a partner. She wanted an audience. So I gave her exactly what she wanted. I disappeared from the stage. The next morning, sunlight crept through the blinds, landing on the side of the bed, where she used to sleep, but she wasn't there. Her purse and phone were gone. Maybe she had gone for her morning jog, or maybe she was already at work. Either way, I didn't care to find out. I just sat there motionless, staring at the empty space beside me. I'd spent years filling that space with love, patience, and quiet understanding. Every time she belittled me in public, I told myself she was stressed. Every time she dismissed my affection, I convinced myself she needed space. Every time she said, "Don't make everything about feelings," I swallowed the hurt and kept smiling. But last night killed something inside me. I got up, showered, and started packing my things, not in anger, but in absolute calm. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. It was like I had finally run out of emotion. When you've been humiliated enough times, the pain eventually turns into clarity. By the time she came home, the living room was empty. My framed photos were gone. My shoes weren't by the door. She looked around, confused, until her eyes landed on the folded note I had, left on the kitchen counter. It wasn't long or emotional. Just one line. You didn't want people to think we were a couple. Now they won't. I didn't wait for her reaction. I turned off my phone, loaded my suitcase into the car, and drove. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing peace. I was choosing it. In the weeks that followed, mutual friends reached out. Apparently, Lauren had started telling people that I'd overreacted, that I was too sensitive, that I didn't understand her professional image. I laughed when I heard that. It wasn't an image issue. It was a respect issue. Funny thing is, when you walk away quietly, it scares people more than shouting ever could. They expect chaos. They expect tears, arguments, desperate texts. But silence makes them realize they've lost control. 2 months later, I saw her. Again by accident, at a cafe downtown. She looked up, startled. There was that familiar flicker of pride in her eyes, followed by something else. Regret, maybe. I smiled politely, nodded, and walked past her. She called my name. Softly at first, then again louder. I didn't stop, because sometimes the loudest thing you can ever say is nothing at all. Life after Lauren was quieter, not lonely, just quiet in the kind of way that lets you finally hear your own thoughts again. I moved into a small apartment near the edge of the city. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, bare, walls, secondhand furniture, but it felt more like home than our polished house ever did. There were no passive, aggressive sighs, no silent treatments, no tension hanging in the air, just peace. And for a while, I didn't realize how much I had been craving that. I spent my mornings walking to the cafe, around the corner, reading the newspaper, instead of scrolling through texts that never came. I got back into running, joined a local volunteer group, and even reconnected with people I'd lost touch with because my world had revolved around Lauren. It felt strange at first, not to have to constantly prove my worth to someone. A few months passed before I heard from her again. It was a short message. I miss you. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it, not out of anger, but because I finally understood that missing me didn't mean she had changed. It just meant she realized I was gone for good. Friends told me she'd been struggling since the split. Apparently, she tried dating a few people from work, but none of them lasted. She had built her image around being untouchable, the woman who didn't need anyone, until she realized being admired isn't the same as being loved. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks back to that night at the dinner, to the one moment she said those words that ended us. Don't let them think we're a couple. I wonder if she realizes how final they sounded. But the truth is, I don't need to know. I've learned that. Closure doesn't come from the other person explaining why they hurt you. It comes from accepting that they did, and you survived anyway. Now when I see Couples holding hands in public? I don't. Feel bitterness? I feel gratitude. Because I know what it's like to reach for someone who pulls away. And I know what it's like to finally stop reaching. Lauren once told me that appearances mattered more than feelings, that sometimes perception was everything. Maybe she was right. Because from where she stands now, she can keep pretending she's fine. And from where I stand, I don't have to pretend at all.